Just gotta, because we're coming back to a new year, you know? People are seeing us for the first time in weeks. Here's the thing, I always get like one thing for Christmas. My mother has a tradition of giving us dress shoes, like my brother and I. It's like, this is the thing. I was gonna make some sort of joke about how, you know, I got new shoes for Christmas and we hit the ground running when I came back into town. What? That's bad? Anyway, Tennessee legislative session is underway, okay? A lot to talk about, a lot of different bills, but I'm gonna focus my attention on some of the things that I think are gonna impact the most amount of people. First thing, of course, that's on everyone's mind is what we plan to do about what happened last year with the Covenant School shooting. Will there be any changes? Will there be any sort of gun reform moving forward? Now we're at the legislative session, not a special session anymore, and lawmakers have to decide if they're gonna be willing to make a change. You know, I mean, we've heard it from the parents, we've heard it from people across the state, we've heard it from people across the country. They saw what happened in Tennessee, they saw what happened in Nashville, and they're asking, can you do something about it? We obviously know the details about what happened at the Covenant School shooting, okay? 6 people lost their lives in a deadly attack. 3 of those people were children. Last year, lawmakers, including Governor Bill Lee, came up with an idea for an extreme risk protection law, okay? And what that did was it offered people an opportunity to go to the courts and say, so-and-so is a risk to himself or others, and so they should not have access to firearms. It's a tough balancing act there because for a very long time, lawmakers have wanted to keep the courts out of stuff like that when it comes to firearms and constitutional rights to bear arms. Now we have a situation that calls for some sort of limitations. That plan quickly fizzled out when many of the Republican lawmakers saw the bill and thought, this is no different than a red flag law. Now, if you're not familiar with red flag law, you may have seen them in different parts around the country where a judge can determine that you can no longer have access to firearms. And for a lot of people, they have a problem with this because again, it may seem like an infringement of your constitutional rights. I mentioned that Republican lawmakers, they saw this bill and thought, this sounds like a red flag law. The governor said, no, not quite. Frankly, it was. I mean, let's call it what it was. It was a type of red flag law because it limited people's access to firearms based on, you know, some sort of criteria. Now, several months later, we have some of the same lawmakers who were against the idea of a red flag law coming up with a new law that is very similar. I wouldn't say it's the same. It's similar. House Majority Leader William Lamberth just sponsored a new bill that would make it so that someone who is deemed mentally incompetent could not buy a firearm in Tennessee. So let's think about this for a second. The difference between this bill and the bill from last year is that you actually have to be charged with a crime in order for a judge to determine whether or not you're mentally competent. Meanwhile, the bill from last year got a lot of criticism from Republicans who said there really wasn't anything to stop you from making a false claim against your neighbor that would end up having their guns taken away from them. But again, we're talking about a judge and a court determining if you are mentally fit to have access to firearms. So that's the sticking point for a lot of people. It may seem different, but in the end, it's accomplishing the same thing.
The ink's still not dry on my signature on this bill, but we've been working on this for months.
If the bill passes, a person facing criminal charges deemed not competent to stand trial by a judge would be sent to a mental health facility, and the individual would not be able to possess or purchase weapons.
They're not even competent to be able to talk to their lawyer about their offenses. That is not someone that should be able to have a firearm, period.
How long someone stays in a facility or is restricted from owning guns would be up to the judge. You may remember Lamberth drew a hard line against passing anything close to a red flag bill last year. He says this proposal is way different.
This is totally different from any of the red flag bills or anything else we've seen in the past, because this has lawyers involved for the defendant. This has doctors involved that have evaluated the defendant and given evidence in front of a judge in open court. I mean, this has all the due process associated with it.
So the question becomes, in a legislature that values what the NRA and other gun lobbyists think, does this have a chance?
There's a window there that we need to close.
We checked with both the medically homebound Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally and Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton, who both seem supportive.
If you work those two together, if they're involuntary committed, then their gun rights are taken away until a certain period of time, until the judge can give them back. I think we're all okay with the involuntary commitment process.
Only time will tell if the rest of the lawmakers agree.
This is what we as conservatives have said for years we are looking for when dealing with these type of circumstances.
A couple questions, of course. The bill also says that if you're deemed incompetent, you will be sent to a mental health facility. Well, we've done enough stories now at News Channel 5. Ben Hall has done enough stories now with News Channel 5 Investigates to know that these places are running out of space fast. If they haven't already run out, they will run out soon. And that brings us back to like what happened last year, okay? We had a situation where a man by the name of Shaquille Taylor, he was accused of firing the stray bullet that ended up killing Belmont student Jillian Ludwig. Now, at one point we found out that Taylor was deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial because of his intellectual disability and his language limitations. And this is coming from a case back in 2021 where he allegedly fired into a crowded car. And then doctors found out that he was not competent enough to essentially serve in his own defense. Like he wouldn't be able to contribute in his own defense because of his intellectual disability. That's part of the issue that a lot of people face right now is what happens when these folks need help and they don't have anywhere to go. I mean, I don't know if you know if the firearm that he had was stolen, if it belonged to him, if he had it. All I can say is that one way or another, this man had access to firearms. Whether or not a bill stops that, I'm not sure. But there are people out there, like what happened in Covenant, where they could purchase firearms, legally, even though they had a history of some sort of mental issue. But in Lambert's case, he's saying, because we're doing this with the courts, there are attorneys involved. There are, there's a judge involved. By all of these folks coming to the table, we don't run the risk of someone making a false claim against somebody else and then that person not having the legal representation to, get their case resolved, or to just prove that they are competent enough to purchase firearms or own firearms. So Lambert is saying, let's get them all to the table. But again, like your point, you have to have committed some sort of crime just to get there. And that might be too little too late. So there's a Tennessee lawmaker who has drafted a bill saying that we should remove all other flags from public school classrooms other than the American flag. A lot of room for interpretation there, right? Because I think the understanding is, okay, well, they're targeting certain flags. For example, a rainbow flag. For the LGBTQ plus community. But then we have other people saying, does that mean, just like you said, does that mean I have to take down my Titans flag? Or does that mean I have to take down my University of Tennessee flag from Knoxville? Does that mean I have to take down my Mexican flag from the Spanish classroom? I mean, I don't know. I think they may want to leave it broad. Does that sound odd? I mean, you leave this bill broad enough, it covers all bases, and you don't have to say no to that flag or no to this flag. Am I missing something with this? I feel like it's pretty straightforward, even though it's very vague. And I heard the bill's sponsor say something about how what he doesn't want is children feeling like they're being indoctrinated by, their teachers' ideals or philosophy or anything like that, just because they see the flag in the classroom. This feels like a newer phenomenon though, because growing up, there was the one flag. I don't know. Do you know if there are other states that have something like this? I didn't want to say it was Florida, but I had an idea it was Florida. Okay, so Florida also has a similar ban that's been proposed. This is the conversation that's happening. Lawmakers are very sensitive about what's being taught in the classrooms. We've already seen books being banned. We've already seen different curriculum that's been banned. I don't know if Tennessee wants to lead the way in this by being one of the first states to ban flags in the classroom, but we'll see. We now have a Tennessee Republican lawmaker who wants to expand the exceptions for our state's almost all-out ban on abortion. Right now, the law says that Tennessee doctors can only intervene when a patient's life is in danger. This new bill, as it's written, would make it so that doctors can terminate a pregnancy if the patient's fertility is also in danger. Say someone already knows that they are at risk for having complications with pregnancy. They end up getting pregnant anyway, and they want to avoid those complications before it's too late. They can have the abortion, and that would save not only their life, but it would also save their ability to have children in the future, because they wouldn't have to get the emergency surgery that may end up leaving them sterile.
But these laws are not good enough.
Never thought politics was where I would be, but I knew as a mom to my daughter that's here and to my daughter that has passed, it's my job to make sure that they're taken care of and protected.
Phillips and her husband learned the baby, which they named Miley, stopped growing at 15 weeks and had several birth defects and would not survive outside the womb. Their doctors told them in order to save the mother, she needed an abortion, but Phillips had to travel out of state.
Every kid across this state and every woman across this state has a right to choose what happens to their own bodies.
When the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022, a trigger ban went into effect in Tennessee that essentially banned all abortions.
Exceptions are never going to be good enough. Not when abortion and pregnancy is such a broad topic. I mean, anything could go bad at any moment.
Here's what I thought was also interesting. This bill is coming from a Republican Senator, Dr. Richard Briggs of Knoxville. So we have a physician who is coming forward saying, I believe that certain exceptions should be made. Briggs says that he also wants to terminate pregnancy if the child doesn't appear to be viable, if the child doesn't look like it's going to survive until the delivery day. That's a touchy subject for people because, you may get one opinion from a doctor, you may get a different opinion from a different doctor. But what he's saying is that no parent should have to carry a fatal pregnancy to term just because, we can't do anything about it, because the laws are written a certain way. I wrote down that Briggs probably read the room, knowing that his colleagues, this is a Republican supermajority here in Tennessee, and so he read the room and he said that this bill is still 100% pro-life. He's saying that because we are doing life-saving measures for the parent, but also for their ability to have children in the future, then it is 100% pro-life, even if it means ending a pregnancy before it gets to full term. Now, we don't know what medical conditions qualify for an exception, but we know that they're fine-tuning the details on this. As soon as we learn more, we'll offer some details. Metro Nashville is discussing plans to push their no-vending zone even further throughout the city. If you've ever been downtown Nashville, you've probably seen these signs. It just says like no vending in certain places. And I know what you're probably thinking if you haven't been here in a while. You're like, what do you mean no vending? There's vendors everywhere. Well, yes, not nearly as many as there used to be. Part of that is because some of these signs are now in areas where we normally expected vendors.
So here's the breakdown. Last February, former Mayor John Cooper signed a bill into law that limited where street vendors could sell in downtown Nashville's entertainment district. And the reason why is city leaders say the congestion on these roads is an issue. The rule means vending on public sidewalks within the district, including Lower Broadway, is against the law. Well, now city leaders think it's still an issue and they want to expand the footprint. Here's a map so you can see for yourself. Currently, sidewalk vending is not allowed from the Cumberland River to 8th Avenue and from Union Street to Korean Vets. That's the area within the red line. Well, the Metro Traffic and Parking Commission will meet and take up a proposal to push the no vending zone even further. And that'll expand about a block further south and west of the main downtown tourist area.
We've spoken to some of the street vendors, and they've told us they feel like they have a target on their back, even though they're here to support the tourists. You know, Nashville's become a tourist destination, whether we like it or not. And it's brought all of these people here who expect, in some ways, vendors everywhere. Before we had that. Now, it's very limited. But I could see where if it's a weekday and you've got people darting back and forth and you've got vendors everywhere and there's lines now being formed for said vendor, I could see it being a problem. This city has enough issues with pedestrians being hit by cars. I could see where the city wants to put their foot down and say, all right, we need to do something about this. I know these vendors are paying very close attention to whatever comes out of this decision, but I'm curious, do you feel that this would help or hurt the city of Nashville? What do you think? I saw the video before I even knew what the story was, and I just started smiling. Anyway, a group of skydivers were arrested for landing in a nuclear tower. It's been decommissioned or whatever. What was it, Hartsville? Yeah, in Hartsville. You see these guys just like circling back and forth before they land. And in one of the videos, you see this guy climbing up the tower. I don't know how high the tower is, but it seems just obnoxiously tall.
This caught the eye of Trousdale County Sheriff's deputies, who had some choice words for them on the ground.
You're a dumb son of a I'm like, all right, that's not my friends.
Yeah. He gets up there and then he starts hearing sirens. Looks down, there's a sheriff's department. And it was tense at first, but after, a couple tense moments, the sheriff's deputies, they saw the humor in this.
If I had known you were gonna climb that tower, I would have given you 2 bulbs. We have to pay a guy to, do that,
I'm trying to get that
I was like, well, you got my information and my number now. I mean, hit me up,
I guess these guys have been shooting video of, themselves doing crazy stunts wherever. 500 feet is how tall the tower was. Why? Why? Needless to say, these guys were given a court date and were charged with misdemeanors for trespassing. Moral of the story, don't trespass. And if you're going to, 500 feet just feels like a long way up. I'm sorry. Let's talk about our friend Tuwanda Coleman. She has just announced that she is retiring after how many years at News Channel 5? After 41 years at News Channel 5. That's some time, folks. The woman has done everything in this building. She has, been a host, she's been a producer, she's been a camera operator. What else has she done? She's done everything. She's been going through old video and photos and such. And I saw the photo of her in black and white, painting the walls. And I thought, when was this? Do I even want to know when this was taken? She said, one of the first jobs I had here at News Channel 5, I was just the handyman doing everything. Tuwanda has seen this place change in ways that I can't even imagine. She has been a voice in this community, and we're seeing fewer and fewer people like her around. What does she mean to News Channel 5? She means everything to this place. And it's sad to see her go, but I'm excited to see her get a break. She is on TV, it feels like every single day, doing something. I can't think of someone who's more deserving of just some rest and relaxation, a little R&R. Tuwanda, you've earned it. You've done so much for this building, so much for the people here in Nashville, so much for people like myself who are here being able to present at News Channel 5. Vicky, she takes trips to Europe all the time now and shows me pictures and stuff. And I'm like, you enjoying retirement? She's like, oh yeah. All right. Someday, someday. But I'm glad that I was a part of News Channel 5 long enough to be able to see folks like this, some of the legacy people in News Channel 5, and be able to appreciate that legacy. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. You know what to do, guys, okay? Just follow, like, comment on this video, share it with your friends and family. I think that's it. See you guys later.